Good afternoon, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. Hope you're all doing very well today, and we are here to talk about three brand new Eldraine spoilers that people have been asking me about: Witch's Vengeance, Oko Thief of Crowns, and Murderous Rider. Will they rock? Let's find out. So first up, my friends, it is Witch's Vengeance, and right away we see that compared to other mono-black 3-mana sweepers, it does kill X3s, and things like Cry of the Carnarium and Flaying Tendrils, well, they don't. And then you have other cards like Bantu's Last Reckoning that have pretty significant downsides, right? So right away, right out of the gates, we're tempted to say that, hey, maybe we got our black Anger of the Gods, right? Because it kills X3s, and it also has an upside. So Anger's upside, of course, is that it exiles, which is good against Dredge and other recursive graveyard threats, while Witch's Vengeance has the -X as opposed to Destroy, which has its own upsides too. However, this is no Anger of the Gods. This is not even particularly close, sadly. I think what's happened here that's caused some people to overrate this card is how spectacularly good Plague Engineer is, and people are saying, well, Plague Man has showed us just how relevant it can be to hose a specific type. Maybe Witch's Vengeance is just as good. And hey, Plague Man can only kill X1s outright. Witch's Vengeance can kill all the way up to X3s. Maybe it's even better. And the answer is simply no. No, it is not. Plague Man OP. Witch's Vengeance, not so much. The card is interesting. It's fine. I definitely wouldn't say anyone registering it is strictly incorrect. It's not unplayable. But Plague Engineer is so relevant because not only does he get kills when he comes down, often multiple kills, he leaves behind a 2/2 Death Touch body, and most importantly of all, the effect is static. Plague Man continues to lock out X1s of that type until the Plague Man himself is dealt with. This is simply a 1-mana sweeper effect. And look, yes, there are windows where it will be good, but if we are going to play a sweeper that is not already going to have its bases covered by cards like Plague Engineer, it's gotta be the break glass, in case of emergency button of something like Damnation or even Languish, although Languish has fallen out of favor. But, Witch's Vengeance, this is not going to rock. Not right now, not in the current meta. This is not what we need. Not a bad one to own, not a bad one to keep in the maybe board, to keep in mind in case the meta shifts to a point where it does become relevant to have a tribal hoser like this. But for now, I think Plague Engineer covers our bases extremely well, supplemented by maybe board cards like Damnation, Engineered Explosives, etc. So Witch's Vengeance, my verdict, no, it will not rock. Next up, my friends, let's talk about Oko, Thief of Crowns. Hope that's how you pronounce the name, Oko, But anyway, we are looking at a very interesting and relatively powerful Planeswalker, I would say. People have asked me, does this go into Sultai? So of course it doesn't rock because it has blue, but I've been dabbling in Sultai lately. I've been dabbling in other BGX variants, and so people have asked me, hey, does Oko help Sultai climb back into a position of more relevance? So let's look at him. +2 you can create a food token, so right away we have a 3-mana walker with a high loyalty count and 2/1 abilities, so I think the card has a pretty high floor. And then +2 create a food token, that's never dead, it's just a little slow, but look, if you're able to stabilize against burn and you're able to keep churning out food tokens, that's a really good use case for Oko. And then you have the -5, you can quote-unquote ult relatively soon, and it's a conditional one. It's not one of immense power most times, but there are windows where it will be nice, and you're not priced into doing it right away. You can still keep churning out food tokens, so that's all well and good. But in my view, whether Oko is the right fit for a deck or not is going to be dependent on how relevant this +1 is. It's kind of a Beast Within style effect. Target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk with base power and toughness 3/3. So it's an interesting one. It's not exactly value positive because whatever you destroy, you leave behind a body. Obviously, a 3/3 elk is going to be mostly worse than whatever you're destroying, unless you're popping one of your own food tokens or something, and that can be a cute synergy. Over many, many turns, Oko can build his own army. But really, I think that's too cute to matter most times in Modern. And I think what we want to determine is whether or not the deck requires this Beast Within effect, this repeated Beast Within effect, for destroying other permanents on the other side of the field. And that is why I actually do not think Oko is a good fit in Sultai at all. Because if you're on a Sultai deck, you already have access to the core green-black removal suite, which is arguably the biggest argument to be playing the archetype in the first place. You have Abrupt Decay, you have Assassin's Trophy, you have Maelstrom Pulse, and, therefore you don't need Beast Within. You really do not need Beast Within. And therefore I think Oko just kind of is attempting to fill a gap in Sultai that doesn't really need to be filled. Now, again, I think the card is appropriately powered to see Modern play in a vacuum, and if we're looking at a shell like Simic or Temur that does not have access to very good catch-all removal, then maybe Oko really fills a role that they need to be filled. But for Sultai, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to rock. I don't think he's going to rock even in your Blue Splash rock deck. So for me, it's going to be a hard pass, but of course, my friends, you can let me know if you think I'm wrong. And finally, my friends, let us talk about Murderous Rider, a new adventure card. And I'm going to be honest, I think this one just might rock. So briefly, for those who don't know, you can cast this card just ignoring the Swift End adventure part. You can just cast it as a 2/3 that gets put back into the library if it dies with lifelink. Or you can cast it for its adventure mode, which is destroy target creature or planeswalker, you lose 2 life. So this is a hero's downfall with a little bit of life loss attached. And if you do decide to cast it for adventure, upon resolution it will be exiled, and then you can cast Murderous Rider, the creature half of the card, if you will, from exile. So, why do I think this card might rock? Aren't both modes a little bit underpowered? Yes, both modes are a little bit underpowered. Hero's Downfall is a kind of fringe Modern playable card, but you would mostly only play it in a non-BGX, but black-based mid-range deck. Maybe mono-black Devotion or something might play one of them because you don't have access to things like Decay Pulse Trophy. So it's nice to have something that can kill a planeswalker, basically. But even so, it has never felt great to use a card like Hero's Downfall on a planeswalker, simply because, by definition, the planeswalker will have gotten some kind of value, some kind of activation, almost always before you have a chance to destroy it with your Hero's Downfall. Therefore, even if you have it, you have not traded at parity. But, for that matter, it also feels bad to Decay or Trophy or Pulse a Planeswalker a lot of the time in the Rock, simply for the same exact reason. It is a value negative trade for us at the end of the day. Now, sometimes it's still our best play, sometimes we will have recouped value in other ways, and that allows us to stay in the game and all that stuff. But it is nice, in theory, to have access to a card like this, so we can allow them to play a Planeswalker. They activate it, we respond, or we wait till their end step and we hit them. We bring them with to a Swift End. And then we have the ability to regain resource parity at some point in the game, be it the following turn or 5 turns down the road, whenever the best window is. You can cast a Murderous Rider after having cast a Swift End, all from the same card. So that is very appealing. It's kind of an intrinsic 2-for-1. In this case, it'd be a 2-for-2, because they got a Planeswalker, they activated it, and then we catch back up, basically. But remember that often we will be simply destroying a creature with this, so this will be a 2-for-1 in our favor if we hit a creature with it. It'll be a slow 2-for-1, it'll be a little bit of a clunky 2-for-1, but a 2-for-1 nevertheless. And, we do the final argument in favor of this card from my perspective is that we do need to beat Burn. Burn is a top tier deck, the top tier deck, in fact, of Modern. As of the recording of this video, it's number 1 on the MTG Goldfish meta breakdown. And so we have an inherently good matchup against Burn on the Rock. And between the diversity of Modern and the fact that our matchup is inherently good, it is not good deck building most of the time to dedicate a ton of narrow anti-burn cards to our sideboard slots at the expense of other things. Despite that, we always have a lot of bad cards that we need to bring out. So having a Murderous Rider in the 75 is going to shore up our Burn matchup and make it even better. And while Burn is the deck to beat, this is definitely another point of appeal for playing this flexible 2-for-1 card. And remember, you can simply cast it as a Murderous Rider. You don't have to cast it as an adventure. And while in a vacuum, a 2-3 for 3 with lifelink is not Modern playable, it's actually kind of a fine play in the context of our attrition-based deck and our other good interaction. Against Burn, it's actually a pretty sweet one. So, yeah, Murderous Rider, I don't think it's going to revolutionize our archetype by any means. I don't think it's going to see play as more than probably a 1 or at most 2 of, but I think it might rock, and I myself am definitely going to test 1 copy. Alright, my friends, so that was me discussing the 3 cards that people have been asking me the most about over the last couple days, with one glaring exception of the card Questing Beast. Why didn't we talk about Questing Beast? Well, that's because there's so much going on with that card, it's going to get its own video. So keep your eye out for that. And as far as these 3 cards go, of course, let me know what you think. Agree, disagree, doesn't matter. I'd love to hear it anyway. So thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll talk to you soon.